Bring into the conversation the founder of the gun violence prevention group Moms Demand Action, Shannon Watts. She started the organization through a Facebook group one day after the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary in Connecticut, which now has a chapter, Moms Demand Action, in all 50 states. Shannon, thanks so much for being with us this morning. You are a mother of 5 yourself. You started that Facebook group the day after Sandy Hook, December 15th, 2012, almost a decade ago, and you have made this your life's work since then. We've been talking around the table a little bit about what to say to kids right now. We'd like to be able to say, don't worry, they're rare, they are, thank God, and it can't happen to you, but it's just not true.
I know that it feels that way this morning. And what happened in Uvalde, what happened in Buffalo, and on and on and on, and the daily gun violence that kills over 110 Americans every single day feels unfathomable. And yet here we are again. You know, I have a 26-year-old daughter who is an elementary school teacher in Bloomington, Indiana. And today she will have to sit in that classroom and read a book to students about when bad things happen, to try to explain this tragedy to children. It is on all of us, adults. The onus is on us to act. And I've heard so many people today on your show talking about what happens next. What happens next is that we get angry, that we fight. The Republican lawmakers aligned with the NRA want the clock to run out. It is up to us when this clock runs out. We are demanding action right now, and we will keep doing it all the way through elections in November. We have been doing it for a decade. We have made huge progress in school boards and state houses and corporate boardrooms. But we have to get these senators who are in a stranglehold by the gun lobby to act. We have to demand it. The onus is on the adults in this country to fight. 50% of Americans have been impacted by gun violence. If you haven't, God bless you. But if you are listening to this show today, find a piece of this work that you are passionate about and work on it. We cannot give up hope. We cannot say that this is a hopeless issue. It is up to us to fight.
Shannon, I think that's a really important point because we hear again and again, Sandy Hook, 20 kids were murdered in their classroom and nothing changed afterward. Well, that's not necessarily true. People like you and others have fought to change laws across the country. Can you talk a little bit about some of the progress that has been made in the last decade, obviously with still some work to do from your point of view?
You're exactly right. We are all waiting for and deserve a cathartic moment in Congress that has come in the House, and thanks to Lucy McBath, a former Moms Demand Action volunteer and gun violence survivor, who the first thing she did when she was elected in 2018 was to help pass gun safety legislation through the House. We are waiting for the Senate to act, let's be clear. But in the meantime, we haven't just sat on the sidelines. We have passed background checks now in over 20 states. We've passed red flag laws in 20 states. We've closed the Charleston loophole in 19 states. We've disarmed domestic abusers in 29 states. We've stopped the NRA's agenda 90% of the time in state houses for the last 6 years. This work is being done like drips on a rock by volunteers and gun violence survivors who show up every single day at every single gun bill hearing, and they say, not in my community, you won't. You will not pass laws and policies that endanger my children and my community. And that's how this work happens. It doesn't happen on Twitter. It doesn't happen in a 2-day span. It happens when you decide you're going to get off the sidelines and act. And I would ask everyone to text the word ACT to 64433. We will immediately tell you how you can get involved in your community to push back on the gun lobby. Again, it is up to us when this clock runs out, and it shouldn't ever run out. We have to hold lawmakers' feet to the fire. They have the power to stop this. Data shows states with stronger gun laws have fewer gun deaths. States with weak gun laws have more. It is intuitive. But the lawmakers are making laws based on what gun lobbyists tell them. And we have to make that stop.
And Shannon, I want to underline a stat that you gave us all, because we see horrific tragedies unfold, as we saw in Texas yesterday, or we saw in Buffalo last week. And that's what strikes us, what stops us in our tracks. But as you pointed out, 109 Americans are killed by guns every day, or at least they were in 2018. That's the latest year that we have the stats for. 109 Americans killed every day by guns. And yet, you are right. You all have made tremendous progress. But there are so many states that are going backwards, that are talking about open carry, that are talking about no need for permitting, no need for training. It is a race to the bottom in other states like Texas. So what do Texans do? What do Americans do?
Well, you're exactly right, Joe. We are all only as safe as the closest state with the weakest gun laws. That's why we need federal action. We have stopped bad gun lobby bills, like you mentioned, permitless carry this year in places like Nebraska and South Carolina. But it also is passed now in 21 states. Again, this is a law, permitless carry, which would allow people to carry hidden loaded handguns in public with no background check and no training. Data shows it increases gun violence. It is opposed by police. It is opposed by police. It is opposed by the vast majority of Americans, and yet the gun lobby has forced lawmakers to push it through. Why? Because it will sell more guns. This is an arms race. It's why a security guard, both in Buffalo and in Uvalde, were not able to stop armed gunmen from killing people. This is an arms race. And so we must act in our state houses. We must have federal action. We know that good gun laws work. And yet, as you said in Texas, what have they done after suffering four of the 10 deadliest mass shootings in our nation's history? They actually rolled back gun laws. That's what the governor there did. He succumbed to gun extremism. And that's what this is at the end of the day, right? We've seen this over the past decade. What started out as being called downright weird by the NRA, right? Open carry and extremism has become a mainstream part of the GOP platform. And it is what is dictating their policy and their agenda. And it is up to us to stop it.
Shannon, the governor you just mentioned is slated to speak at the annual NRA meeting in is it Houston?
Houston.
This weekend. There are a number of high-profile Republicans slated to speak. I don't know if they'll make the decision, maybe that it's not a wise time to go. If you could speak to that group, what would you say?
Have you no conscience? Do you have any ethics or morals? How do you sleep at night? And I saw that Senator John Cornyn has already said he had other obligations. But, you know, if you look at over 20 years ago, almost to the day when Columbine happened, there was going to be the NRA annual meeting days later in Colorado. And we have heard those discussions because there are tapes. And they had a choice. They could back down or they could double down. And they decided to double down. And I would expect nothing less to see them do the same thing this weekend. And I just want to point out that every year, these elected officials who speak at the NRA annual meeting, they are in gun-free zones. There are no guns allowed when they make speeches. Why is that? They are afraid of being shot. And yet they don't do a damn thing to make sure our children aren't shot in their schools, and people aren't shot in grocery stores, and they aren't shot in churches, and on and on and on.
Founder of Moms Demand Action, Shannon Watts, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. I'm sure we'll be talking to you again in the coming days.